Niger Delta region is one of the largest crude oil producing areas in the world and the largest wetland in Africa. The region is estimated to have 37 billion barrels of oil reserves and 168 trillion cubic feet of gas deposits. The oil sector accounts for over 90% of foreign exchange earnings for Nigeria, and the bulk of it comes from the Niger Delta region. However, the region is considered as one of the most oil-impacted regions in the world due to poorly regulated oil activities. A number of factors are said to have contributed to the environmental degradation of the region over the years, which includes gas flaring, industrial pollution, oil spillage, and much more. Successive administrations have made concerted efforts to promote lasting development in the region for many years through the establishment of Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC), Oil Mineral Producing Areas Development Commission (OMPADEC), Ministry of Niger Delta (MND), and the amnesty program for the militants, as well as improvement of revenue derivation for the oil-producing states in the region from 1% to 13%. Over the years, crude oil spillage through pipeline vandalism has been one of the major problems of the region. Rising cases of pipeline vandalism by militant groups have significantly affected sources of revenues of government and oil companies operating in the region. There's no question that it's been difficult to curb the high-level, unbridled and mindless pillaging of the nation's commonwealth, exposing the Nigerian state to the menace that has nearly brought the nation's economy to its knees. Nigeria is almost becoming a no-go investment destination for investors in the sector. Investors that have operated in the country for over 5 decades are either leaving or moving their operations deep offshore. This move is meant to avoid the headache of dealing with illegal oil bunkering and incessant destruction of pipelines, as well as other assets. Statistics show that Nigeria is losing well over 300,000 barrels per day as a result of crude oil pipeline vandalism, which runs into billions of dollars in losses. This has resulted in significant negative socio-economic and environmental problems in the region, with serious effects on human lives and the farmlands. The Nigerian economy has been hemorrhaging. The oil thieves have been having a field day, and the authorities appear to be helpless, if not hopeless, in dealing with the situation. Nigeria's 2024 OPEC oil quota is 1.58 million barrels per day, with a federal budget benchmark of 1.78 million barrels per day. With this, Nigeria is still far from meeting her target. To underscore how critical crude oil is to Nigerian economy, the commodity constitutes up to 80% of Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings and almost 70% of its yearly budget. This is why the federal government, working with sub-national governments, have been committed to tackling the problem head-on. The discovery of crude oil in commercial quantity in Oloibiri in 1956 marked the birth of the petroleum industry in Nigeria. Since then, Nigeria's economy has been more or less dependent on the sale of crude oil and its derivatives. To facilitate the distribution of crude oil product from the oil-rich Niger Delta to other parts of the country, a network of oil pipelines was constructed to interlink some states at strategic locations. Nigeria has a total pipeline grid of over 5,001 kilometers. This consists of 4,315 kilometers of multi-product pipelines and 666 kilometers of crude oil pipelines. These pipelines traverse the country, forming a network that interconnect the 22 petroleum storage depots, as well as the 4 refineries located at Port Harcourt, Kaduna, Warri, and the offshore terminals at Bonny and Escravos, and the jetties at Atlas Cove, Calabar, Okrika, and Warri. A vast portion of the over 5,000 kilometers of oil pipelines is non-functional due to vandalism, according to the NNPC Group Chief Executive Officer, Mele Kyari. Furthermore, it is believed that operators spend over 50% of their oil revenue in defraying the cost of production. A huge part of this cost goes into security of their oil assets. In September last year, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, said Nigeria lost about $46 billion to crude oil theft in 11 years, a development that drastically hampered the growth of the country's oil production, with Nigeria losing up to 30% of daily production. The Nigerian oil pipeline infrastructure has been subjected to incessant attacks by vandals over the years. It is no news that Nigeria relies hugely on crude oil and gas revenues to fund much of its federal government's budget. In 2022, a security agreement was signed with Tantita Security Services Limited to tackle crude oil theft in the Niger Delta, and it started yielding positive results right away, as the country began experiencing an increase in crude oil sales in the international market. Cumulatively, Nigeria's national oil production recovered to an average of more than 1.47 million barrels per day in November from an all-time low of 1.1 million barrels per day before the contract was signed in August 2022, according to documents released by the NNPC. This translates to an increase of over 300,000 barrels per day. Likewise, findings further suggest that oil production continued to improve significantly as more and more wells and associated surface facilities hitherto shut down by ongoing theft and vandalism reopened. The country's average joint venture oil production in the August to November 2022 period increased by about 190,000 barrels per day. According to the document, production rose to 521,834 barrels per day in September 2023, before rising further to an average of 590,431 barrels per day and 668,147 barrels per day in October and November. 2,426 oil theft incidents were reported in the subsequent 4 months, causing the nation's crude oil production to further struggle. From December 30, 2023 to January 5, 2024, NNPC reported 157 breaches on oil assets. The following week, which ended on January 14, the cases of theft went to 211, 214 in the week ending January 19, and 176 by January 27, and settled at 241 breaches by February 2, 2024. By February 9, the theft figure stood at 354 breaches, 226 by February 16, 253 by February 23, and 263 by the 1st of March. In the first 2 weeks of March, the theft cases stood at 335. Monthly, the cases of theft hovers around 1,337. It is evident that from the above statistics that oil pipeline vandalism is a burgeoning organized crime in Nigeria. This illegality has been so systemized in such a manner that it goes with the semblance of a franchise, wherein even private individuals have been implicated of the crime, as some public officials have been accused of paying groups to break into oil industry equipment and steal many thousands of gallons at a time. Tankers or barges are then filled and oil is exported. The National Security Advisor, NSA, Nuhu Rubadu, stated recently that the country loses 400,000 barrels per day to theft. Aside Rubadu, a former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timothy Siva, said Nigeria lost at least 700,000 barrels per day to thieves in 2022, not in any way comparable to other oil-producing countries plagued by oil theft like Venezuela, Iraq, Mexico, and Malaysia. In October 2023, the Nigerian Senate reviewed that the country lost 2.3 trillion naira to crude oil theft during the year. The prevalence of oil pipeline vandalism in Nigeria has been principally driven by the culture of inordinate ambition to amass wealth for accelerated socio-economic mobility and empowerment. This is a pattern of primitive accumulation that is prevalent in Nigeria's public and private domains. It is to be noted, however, that pipeline vandalism has also been occasioned by sabotage. This was the case in the heydays of the Niger Delta crisis, when militants used to indulge in sporadic assault of the pipeline system deployed in the region in an attempt to sabotage the activities of the oil companies, as well as elicit government and international attention. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPC) equally reported a staggering 400 incidents of crude oil theft, with the bulk of them occurring on the western region of Rivers and Bayelsa states. The Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative (NEITI) has revealed that Nigeria lost 619.7 million barrels valued at 16.3 trillion naira to crude oil theft from 2005 to 2021. In 2023 alone, the NNPC spent 136 billion naira on security, repairs and maintenance of vandalized infrastructure. On June 18, these day newspapers carried out a review of the latest information from the NUPRC, indicating that, going by the 1.58 million barrels per day OPEC quota in the first 5 months of this year, the country was supposed to produce 240 million barrels. However, the data showed that Nigeria only managed to produce a volume of about 198 million barrels of crude oil, leaving a deficit of about 42 million barrels of OPEC-sanctioned production during the period. With oil pipeline vandalism, criminals tend to be somewhat selective of prime targets and are most attracted to targets that appear to offer a high payoff with little effort or risk of legal consequences. An oil surveillance operation recently smashed a huge illegal bunkering camp in Bayelsa State, with certain entities, including one of the pipeline security subcontractors to an indigenous oil exploration company, fingered in the incident. NEITI, through its executive secretary, Ogbonaya Oji, disclosed that in the last 5 years, 2017 to 2021, Nigeria recorded 7,143 cases of pipeline breakages and deliberate vandalism resulting in crude theft and product losses of 208.639 million barrels valued at $12.74 million or 4.325 trillion naira. NEITI's 2021 Oil and Gas Industry Report, released in September, underscored the sector's substantial impact on Nigeria's economy. The oil and gas industry accounted for 72.26% of the country's total exports, and government foreign exchange contributing 40.55% of government revenue, while providing 19,171 jobs. President Tinubu is implementing key reforms in the energy sector, ensure collaboration between security agencies and oil industry operators to stem oil theft and abolish fuel subsidies. Government steps to avert further vandalism. 1. Federal Government of Nigeria through the NNPC is collaborating with the nation's military and other security agencies to ensure adequate policing and protection of critical pipeline infrastructure throughout the country, so as to checkmate the activities of pipeline vandals, which is having a devastating effects on the country's economy. 2. The National Assembly is eyeing stiffer penalties and punishment within legislation on pipeline vandals in the country to guard against future occurrences and put a stop to the economic sabotage which paralyzes business activities. 3. Multinational oil companies into the exploration activities in the Niger Delta region are being encouraged by the government to be more involved in socially responsible actions through the provision of basic amenities, scholarships, and sponsorship of some major events to help assist the immediate communities in which they operate, as this will go a long way in reducing the tension and political and militant agitations which have become the order of the day in the region. 4. Federal government is exploring new measures of laying standard pipeline infrastructure in line with global best practices so that the incidence of pipeline vandalism will be eradicated or reduced to its barest minimum. In conclusion, the President Bola Tinubu administration has reiterated its commitment to tackle crude oil theft to achieve the desired economic growth and stability of the country. The president also noted that the military and other security agencies are working tirelessly to counter the menace of crude oil theft and pipeline vandalism in the Niger Delta region.